It is the duty of the Republican Party to ensure that we have competent, honest, and trustworthy people in office so that we can participate in the restoration of California to its rightful place. That was taken from an op ed by Scott Baugh, who is running for the 47th Congressional District here in California. And in this video, we're going to find out if Scott Baugh himself can live up to his own words. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another one of these deep dives here on a political candidate here in California. If this is your first time tuning in to these episodes, welcome. Thanks for tuning in to one of these videos. The point of these videos is to obviously do deep dives on candidates because it's my belief that you shouldn't blindly vote for any candidate just because they have a D or an R next to their name. It's my belief that you should really look at these candidates, look at their past, look at what's going on. That way you can get a better idea of who they are behind all the fluff, behind the campaign ads, behind the stump speeches and all that. And that way you can better vote for who you want to represent you, and whether it's in the assembly or in the state legislature or for governor or for Congress or anything like that. And in this case, this is Scott Baugh. Scott Baugh is the subject of this video, and we're going to be looking at the question, most importantly, is he the best that the Orange County GOP can do? Because right now he has the endorsement of the Orange County GOP to run for the Congressional 47th District. And once that happened, I decided maybe it's time to look into this guy and do a little bit more of a deep dive and find out what's been going on with Scott Baugh. And I can tell you right now, there's a long history. Now, if you've never heard of Scott Baugh, it's probably because you're not in Orange County and you're not involved in politics, because he's not a big prominent name, for one. But it's also, if you've been in Orange County, you probably have a good idea who he is because he's been around since 1995. He was an assemblyman who got into the assembly under some shady conditions, and we're going to hop into that first off. And he's been basically a lobbyist. He's been the chair of the Orange County GOP. He ran in 2018 against Dana Rohrabacher. We're going to get into that and why that's really a big issue. And he was also involved in some other shady dealings here in Orange County. So we're going to jump right into that right away with the first story about him, which is from the LA Times. Carmody pleads guilty in Baugh campaign case. Carmody, her first name is Rhonda Carmody, is 27, the wife of Representative Dana Rohrabacher, was sentenced to 3 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and was fined $2,800. Carmody, who is her husband's campaign manager, also pledged not to contact voters or engage in other electoral activities unless it was on behalf of Rohrabacher. Her record will carry no felony. Carmody helped recruit and place on the ballot a decoy candidate to split the Democratic vote and ensure the election about a Rohrabacher protege. So keep that in mind, why that's a big deal, of why he's a protege to the assembly in 1995, according to the testimony in her June trial. It ended in a hung jury with 2 jurors holding out for acquittal. She was charged with conspiracy and fraudulently filing and making nomination papers on behalf of Lori Campbell, the decoy candidate. Now keep that name in mind as well. We hop over to another Los Angeles Times article. Baugh indicted on felony charges in campaign ploy. Baugh of Huntington Beach was charged with 4 felonies, including falsifying campaign reports and persuading another person to commit perjury. He also was charged with 18 misdemeanors for allegedly concealing the source of campaign money. The indictment of Baugh culminated in an investigation has laid out in extraordinary detail the lengths of which GOP operatives were willing to go to secure the ouster of Maverick Assemblywoman Doris Allen, who was a Republican, and Baugh's victory in order to take control of the assembly. Now, that's a couple of things there. First off, the Maverick Assemblywoman Doris Allen. That's important because it's part of a pattern that you'll see with Scott Baugh and sort of his associates when it comes to running for office. And also the other thing that's pretty crazy for you to see is that the Republicans actually took control of the assembly in this election, which was a big deal. And I know it's crazy to think that at one point in California's history, Republicans did actually control one of the legislative houses here in California. I mean, granted, it was all the way back in 1995, but hey, I mean, still, that's pretty impressive. And it is, if you don't think it's ever been possible or ever been done before, here's your proof that it has been done before. After the hearing, Baugh stood outside Superior Court Judge David O'Carter's courtroom and denounced Orange County District Attorney Michael R. Capizzi. He accused Capizzi of timing the indictment to fall just days before Tuesday's primary election when Baugh faces two Republican challengers. This is obviously a political ploy, Baugh said. It's a witch hunt and it's politically motivated to be brought days before an election. The voters of the 67th Assembly District demanded conservative leadership in that district. Baugh said, I'm that true conservative and I'm voting that true conservative platform. And Mr. Capizzi and the district attorney's office don't like that. In another article from the San Francisco Gate, Orange County Assemblyman Scott Baugh, whose election last fall gave conservative Republicans control of the assembly, was indicted yesterday on 4 felony and 18 misdemeanors. The indictment of Baugh represents a deep political wound for Assembly Speaker Kurt Pringle, who won the second most powerful job in California government in January with the help of the newly elected assemblyman from Huntington Beach. In papers filed by local prosecutors in Orange County, Baugh is quoted as saying Pringle gave his blessing to a scheme to place a Democratic ally on the ballot to help ensure his election last November. Baugh ousted former Speaker Doris Allen in a recall election. Since the election, 3 Republican campaign aides, including a field representative Pringles, have pled guilty to election fraud in charges. And it goes on to talk about how the scheme was to illegally place on the ballot the name of Lori Campbell, a Democrat and longtime friend of Baugh's. So she was sort of, I guess, in on it as well because she was a friend of Scott Baugh. And if you're not putting together the pieces of what happened here, it was basically that the GOP at that time figured out that if we add another Democrat, it will split the vote and allow Scott Baugh to sort of sail to victory. Which it did, and Scott Baugh did end up winning that race. Now, it's sort of shady. Yes, it's very shady to kind of just put a decoy candidate on the ballot. It is shady that they all kind of conspired together, that all the GOP operatives in that area and possibly all the way up to the Speaker of the Assembly at that time sort of conspired together to put this woman on the ballot just so that Scott Baugh could win. So already not really a good start to Scott Baugh's political career. And if that wasn't enough, he also got dinged by the FPPC in 1999 for failing to file a required late contribution report disclosing the receipt of $30,000 monetary contribution from Philip Morris in 1998. So he got a fine from the FPPC, failing to report that $30,000 monetary contribution. Now, again, let's go back to that quote that he said at the beginning of the video, which is that if you're looking, the Republican Party is looking for candidates who are competent, honest, and transparent. Those 3 words. So far, do you believe he's kind of lived up to those words? Has he been honest? Has he been competent? Has he been completely transparent? Well, the reason that you're required to disclose who you're getting money from is because the voters deserve to know who you are getting money from and who you're getting supported, and likely who you might go and vote and who you might go support and what legislation you might go support. It's important for voters to know that. And I think it's always, if you've seen any of my past videos where I go through a lot of these reports, whether it's FEC reports or whether it's Secretary of State reports, it's paramount to know where the money is coming from and where it's going, because a lot of money pours into these campaigns. And a lot of times people don't really know, or they don't really know how to figure out where that money is going. And in this case, $30,000, whether it's in 1998 money or 2022 money, it's a lot of money to just kind of not disclose, especially from Philip Morris. So that's a big issue. And if we're talking about someone being transparent, failing to disclose such a large amount is not an oopsie. It seems like it's something that they didn't maybe want to even disclose. So now moving on all the way up, we're going to keep moving on all the way up to 2018. We're going to jump a couple decades, and we're going to talk about what happened between him and Dana Rohrabacher, who he was supposedly very close friends with. So watch this short video.
I believe it's time for a change. It's time for new blood.
Scott Baugh is challenging one of the longest serving and most controversial Republican incumbents in the House, Dana Rohrabacher.
He hasn't passed a bill in 14 years. He's passed 3 bills in 30 years. And at the end of the day, in Orange County, we need a representative who's going to help Orange County set the agenda.
Baugh is a Republican who led the party in the state assembly and chaired the party in Orange County.
We need Scott Baugh.
Baugh has raised millions in a race against a man he once considered a close friend.
Friendship aside, it's time for Dana to move on.
Several Republicans are running against Rohrabacher, including Shastia Sandman.
Dana, I've seen the intel on you. I'm asking you to step down and save face before you embarrass the Republican Party anymore.
Politico called Rohrabacher Putin's favorite congressman because of his pro-Russian views. Rohrabacher recently told realtors it's okay to refuse sales to gay people. For more than a month, I've asked Rohrabacher's team for an on-camera interview. They've sent me this statement, quote, Dana Rohrabacher is a principled conservative with an unwavering commitment to freedom, fiscal responsibility, and national security. He has never joined the Washington establishment, which is exactly why special interests are lining up to fund opponents like lobbyist Scott Baugh. As Baugh tries to bring together the Republican Party, there's a crowded field of Democrats trying to unite that party.
I'm Hans Kierstead.
Scientist Hans Kierstead,
I'm Harley Ruda, and I approve this message.
real estate investor Harley Ruda are among those vying to lead this traditionally Republican district. Political analyst John Fleischman publishes the Flash Report.
Multiple Democrats have all publicly said, I should be the one that stays in the race and everyone should get up.
Under California's top two primary system, the top two finishers advance on June 5th, regardless of party.
You now have two strong Republicans running and like 3 or 4 strong Democrats running. And if you do a little bit of math, it's not hard to figure out that there's a strong potential that the 2 Republicans will advance in November.
And that would really be a nightmare scenario for Democrats. They need to win 23 seats to win back the House, and they see Rohrabacher as one of the most vulnerable Republicans in the entire country.
So the result of that election was that Harley Ruda actually did end up winning that seat and flipping what was a traditionally long-held Republican seat by Dana Rohrabacher into a Democratic seat. And that was part of that 2018 wave of where a whole bunch of Democrats started winning seats all over Orange County. And people were kind of scratching their head going, what the heck happened? So even though that prediction of that they thought there was a good chance that the Republicans would get on the ballot and that they wouldn't have to worry about it, it was eventually flipped from Republican to Democrat. Now, I don't know how much that played with Scott Baugh being in the race or going after Dana Rohrabacher. Did that split the vote? Did that cause a lot of problems? Who knows? But the one thing that I did pick up on again is this idea that Scott Baugh and his associates don't seem to like any candidate who kind of steps out of line with what the establishment wants from their candidates. And the quote I read from you at the beginning of the video was an op-ed regarding an assemblyman named Tyler Deep. Now, Scott Baugh wrote that op-ed, and let me pull it up for you real quick so you can take a look at it. This was written by Scott Baugh in January 20th of 2020, where Tyler Deep did vote for AB 5. There's a whole issue with that. I'm not a big fan of AB 5. I think that's a horrible vote. But he called him out and said, look, you're not towing the establishment line. I don't know if it's a purity test sort of thing, but it seems like whenever there's an issue, Scott Baugh is sort of in the middle of it with a lot of his lobbying friends and special interests. They're there to kind of get people back in line. And I'm not sure if that has a tie-in with the Orange County GOP right now. Maybe that's why they've decided to endorse him for this congressional seat, is because he's such an establishment guy. And maybe it's because of the dirty little secret, or the dirty, pretty open, wide secret with politics, is that if you bring in money and you bring in a lot of money, people are going to back you up and they're going to get behind you. And even if you have all of this baggage with indictments and all this shady dealings and stuff like that, they're still going to back you because you bring in a lot of money. It's sort of like why people say, well, Nancy Pelosi is so horrible. She's so toxic. Nobody seems to like her outside of San Francisco. Why do the Democrats keep her around? It's mostly because she's the biggest fundraiser and brings in the most money out of any politician. And money does talk in politics. So if you can bring in a lot of money, guess what? You're going to be sticking around for a while. But there is this sort of trend that if you're not really with the establishment of Orange County GOP, Scott Baugh will sort of be there to push back on you with his special interests and his connections, which you can see with this 2018 run against Dana Rohrabacher, which eventually ended up with a Democrat winning that seat. And Democrat still holds that seat to right now. That's what Republicans are trying to get back this seat. That's what his race is right now, is they're trying to get back this seat that they lost in 2018. But I noticed that pattern right away. And I'm not sure if a lot of Californians really want to keep seeing establishment politicians, if they want to see establishment Republicans. I think a lot of the Trump wave and a lot of that populism kind of spills over into local politics, where people don't really want to see the establishment politician over and over and over again. They want to send someone to Washington who's different, and they don't want to send someone to Washington who's got a lot of these ties to lobbying groups and special interests. Now, Scott Baugh, he didn't stop there. I mean, he's been involved in a lot of things outside of just running for politics. When you have this much influence and sort of power in Orange County, you have your hands in a lot of things as well. This article right here is from the Voice of OC. It's county to re-up with firm responsible for $48 million oops. Orange County supervisors Tuesday indicated they would renew their annual $264,000 lobbying contract with Sacramento-based Platinum Advisors, despite that doing so violates a county policy that contracts be rebid after 5 years. And then they all talk about how they're fine with doing it. Platinum Advisors got the county contract in 2008 when Republican Party Chairman Scott Baugh was with the Sacramento-based firm. He dropped the county as a client after then Supervisor Chris Norby complained that the county didn't get adequate progress reports on what Platinum was doing. While Baugh says he's no longer with the firm has kept the county contract. Platinum's effectiveness got an ugly question last year when county officials discovered that $48 million from vehicle license fees had been taken away from Orange County. The county's entire lobbying team had missed a glitch in the county refinancing effort in 2006 that allowed Sacramento to keep all the revenue. Platinum Advisors also made news during the proposed sale of Orange County's Fairground when it was revealed that the firm was secretly hired by the Orange County Fair and Event Center Board in 2009. And then there's another article in the Voice of OC, which is Scott Baugh was at the center of rigged sweetheart deal to sell OC Fairgrounds. Why Mr. Baugh, or anyone for that matter, would advocate for the sale of the great OC Fair is baffling. However, what is clear are the many brazen, unethical, possibly illegal actions taken by him and a group of well-connected politicos, which are known to us today because of the determined efforts of a small group of citizens. In 2009, Mr. Baugh and the members of the OC Fair Board, led by lobbyist Dave Ellis, initiated a scheme to sell the 150 acres of land that is the OC Fairgrounds, first to a nonprofit group that was formed and controlled by the then Fair Board, and later, when that failed, to a politically connected land developer. The final bid was $100 million or more below fair market value, which would have been a huge financial windfall to all involved in the scheme had the courts not intervened to stop the sale. Scott Baugh was hired to make it happen. For the sale to even begin, the state legislature and governor passed and signed a law to enable the sale. Mr. Baugh, through Platinum Advisors, and former state senator Dick Ackerman, through Nassaman LLP, were both paid for lobbying service to get this legislation passed, putting his GOP contacts to work to get the job done. What is known that Scott Baugh's lobby firm was paid $50,000 by the OC Fair in a manner that was later called a laundered payment in the Fair Sale Review Commission's final report. Every effort was made to hide from the public the $50,000 payment. The payments to Mr. Baugh were characterized as laundered because the OC Fair went to extraordinary means to hide Mr. Baugh and Mr. Ackerman's involvement by paying them through an existing contractor. This was illegal and violated numerous state contracting laws. They also did this so Mr. Baugh and Ackerman could deny they were under contract by the OC Fair or involved in an effort to sell the fairgrounds. This laundered arrangement also allowed the fair to shield their involvement from the numerous public records requests seeking information about the board's finances and activities. So, obviously, he's been at the sort of center of a whole bunch of different things. And again, I'll keep reiterating this quote. Do you believe that he's lived up to his own words regarding who the Republican Party should be getting behind or endorsing? Because he advocated in that op-ed to remove the endorsement of Tyler Deep, and now he's been endorsed by the Orange County GOP, and his own words are that they should look for candidates who are competent, honest, and transparent. And based on this video, do you believe that he's lived up to those words? I think there's enough evidence to say that he probably hasn't lived up to a lot of those words that he says himself, because he's got a lot of baggage and he's got a lot of these issues. But I want you to let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments whether you think Scott Baugh is the right candidate to be running for this congressional district. Do you think the Orange County GOP was right in endorsing this specific candidate? Do you think they should have gone with somebody different? And do you think he lived up to his own words? And do you think any of this really matters? That may be the most important thing. Do you think it all matters? Or do you think that we should really be looking into candidates before putting them out there? Let me know in the comments. Again, if this is your first time tuning into one of these videos, we love to do these videos. We love to deep dive into politicians and see where they're getting their money, what's going on with them, anything in their history, anything that should really be brought to the voters' attention, because a lot of this usually isn't brought to the voters' attention. And again, you want to break through the campaign ads and the fluffery and all that stuff and really see who these people are beneath all that stuff, and to make your own decision and make your own educated decision based on people who are running. So if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe, like, share, and do all that stuff. Leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm. If you've been returning and you like these videos, make sure you comment, because that also helps with the algorithm. It helps increase the amount of people who are going to see this video. And also share it with anybody in Orange County. If you live there, make sure you share it with anybody who's in that district who might be interested in learning more about this candidate. So thank you for tuning in. Try to put more of these out throughout the year, as it is an election year. Again, that's all I got to say. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and I'll see you on the next one.